have a fire chief. They were pushing back. The firemen were saying, we don't need this training. This isn't our job. And this fire chief pushed back, and he took the training in the morning. In the afternoon, he was back at his firehouse, right, up on Cheyenne. And a 15-year-old girl asked to use the phone. The 15-year-old girl let him hear the phone call. She did it on purpose. She wanted help that day. The phone call was saying goodbye to her aunt. The fire chief picked up on it the same day he got trained and got her help.
Do you
That's when it
provide
changed.
that training for free?
We can get it in the community. We have trainings out there all the time. Some charge, and there's one for free too.
We are with Nevada Health League, and so I have about 28, 30 assisters, navigators that help consumers enroll into health insurance, and part of it is mental health. But as they're talking to the consumers tell them similar personal stories, and I think that would be something great if we could get at least our assisters involved in that to help the community get that
Absolutely.
information.
Give me a call, and we'll get it set up, and we'll get some trainings out there so your people can get trained up. Absolutely.
And what you're both hitting on is the importance of communication and the importance of all of us sharing our stories. We all have a story to share, and then when you're sharing that story, people need to understand the importance of listening, compassion. And when you're listening, listen for some of the signs that exist. AFSP does a great job sharing this top move behavior of the warning signs. One of them I weren't aware of some of these warning signs that exist, like someone talking about being anxious or wanting to take their life, behavior, giving away prized possessions or drinking more, or just not showing up as they normally are. But these signs exist, and if we can all educate ourselves in those signs, and then listen to your gut, and then have that communication and compassionate listening, that goes a long way in helping people connect, as you mentioned before, and recognize that someone has a need, and just making sure you follow up on that need.
I think it kind of goes back to the awareness piece. Like, I feel like it's harder to effectively intervene without the awareness. And kind of just to give you an example, so when I was in grad school, so I was in my graduate program, and when a colleague of mine, or she was my cohort, probably the smartest student in the entire doctoral program. And keep in mind, this program, so all the professors were practicing clinicians, students were practicing, learning how to become therapists. And so this one night in class, it was the last class before spring break, and I remember like it happened yesterday. She came in, and her name was Natalie. She came in and sat down. It was kind of odd because usually she would sit in the front of the class, same seat every class. And for this class, she came in. She was late. She sat in the very far back of class. Just looked a little disheveled. Affect was flat. Just something seemed amiss. Hair wasn't done, and usually she was always, hair was always made up to a T. And so there was a rumor that she had, was working through the flu. So we're like, okay, that makes sense. She wasn't feeling well. Well, during spring break, she took her life. And when I go back and I reflect on that moment, I still struggle today because there were some signs. Even when she came back to class, she was in the computer lab, saying goodbye to people. But there were signs along the way, and we miss them. And keep in mind that we are bunch of mental health professionals in this classroom, in this program, and so for us to miss those signs, means that anybody can. And so I think that the education piece the education awareness piece is so big. And the other piece of that is when it comes to I always say this, like there's like a bifurcation when it comes to mental health, that people think that if I'm functioning well, I'm working two jobs, that I must not be depressed. Everything must be fine and dandy, right? I'm functioning, well, and that's not necessarily the case, right? And so I think that we have to really be in tune with not only what's going on with ourselves, but what's going on with those around us.
And I'm going to pick on Martha for a moment because she said something interesting when she was speaking before about suicide prevention for you meaning. And that really resonates with me because so often you think of suicide as this overwhelming emotional, psychological trauma that you just will never ever forget. But you spoke about it being suicide prevention. Can you elaborate on that?
So Suicide is not hopeful, but suicide prevention is. And I couldn't do work in this space without thinking it, without believing it, to my core. It is possible to change this trend. That's hopeful. It's possible to stop someone, from dying by suicide. Not always, but that's hopeful, right? There's so many ways to make this hopeful rather than overwhelmingly sad. So can we change something? Can we move forward? Can we change how the conversation is? That is hopeful. Can you look into someone else's eyes and ask them, are you thinking of suicide? That, and getting a response from them and maybe changing their trajectory, that is hopeful. And we do this in our workshop. So if you wouldn't mind, you don't have to, ask someone sitting next to you, look them in the eye, ask them if they're thinking of suicide. Don't answer. That's not what we're